For many, many years, we had a ditch crew that went through and clear cut a ditch, meaning they took their weed eaters. These are metal blade, not the plastic little cut a blade of grass, but these will cut small trees even. And what they were doing at the time was just going through a ditch, and you could see from one end to the other when they finished, even though when it started, you could probably only see 5 feet in the ditch. So it opened it up and you could see all the way down it. Now that took a considerable amount of time. And if you had 50 miles of ditches, you're not going to get through them till 3 years later. So the council looked at the product at that time and said, look, we're doing 2 things. One, we're causing erosion on the banks because we're cutting too much of the vegetation. And that was true. Some of the erosion was going into the ditch, which was filling in the ditch or carrying it out to the sea eventually. So they decided that was not good, and it was taking too long to get through the ditch system. So we want you to do this. 1, cut only what's in the center line of the ditch that affects water flow. Do not cut and clear cut banks. That's a private property's responsibility. Let him let it grow as he wishes. So we have 4 ditch crews that do 2 things. 1, they will go in and clear all center lines of the drainage ditches to make the water flow. That's a routine maintenance program that a schedule of ditches is done throughout the year to try to accomplish that whole cycle in 1 year. We have a list that we start out with, and we usually plan 3 months out that we know that we're going to go into these areas in whatever subdivision it is. And we don't try to hit just one subdivision. We may have crews 3 different locations throughout the city and not just pending in one area, but we'll be in 3 different sites, 3 geographical areas. One designated team is primarily to do roadside ditches, and they will have a small excavator with them. That guy will be digging a lot of dirt out of the roadside ditches because they accumulate a whole lot of soils from the highway or just from the road shoulders themselves sometimes. So in essence, that's what we have now. Today's stormwater program, we have about 15 people and the 9 inmates or so that support the drainage program. On the roadside ditches, you can't hardly just take your eyes and focus how deep to dig or how to adjust the ditch. We have a survey set, and this is a laser guided one that you can set it up from the beginning, points to the end, and you set the depth that you want to dig based on the inflows and outflows of each entrance of a drainage pipe. So we don't want to dig one too high or too low from the other, so all you're going to do is hold water. So we set our surveying set up at one point, aim it down the ditch, and the guy in the excavator, the equipment operator, he will dig according to the survey set that guides him through the ditch. There's a measuring wand stick that has numbers on it that you can sight through, and you're supposed to set it at a certain particular number, which is the elevation number, not to get too specific. But as they're moving along, if they get too deep, the machine will sound off. It'll sound an alarm saying you're either on track or you're off track. And if you're on track, it'll buzz for you. Now let's get to the green side, the environmental side. That is a more important savings probably than anybody could think. But the water that rolls off home roofs, commercial buildings, in parking lots, and then goes into either a holding pond or right into the drainage ditches, the more the drainage ditches is water being cleaned before it gets to the river. The water being maintained in the ponds is settled out into a sediment pond, exactly, before it gets into the system to go to the river. So what do we gain by having clean water? Well, we know that Wilson Bay was cleaned up a great deal over the past 10 years by what we've done, and we have aquatic life galore down there now. Before it's a stagnant bay, and now it's a thriving bay. That's a savings beyond understanding for our environment. So, and that is every day, Monday through Friday, and sometimes a lot on Saturdays, beautifying the city as best we can, and even if it's just a small thing.